joined us before for these sessions, and welcome if this is your first. It's that time of year again, so here we are to see what's new with MedDRA version 28.0 and the MSSO. My name's Jane Knight, and I'm a clinical associate with the MedDRA MSSO, and there's a little screenshot of me there. So the first two slides are our general introduction that MedDRA came about in the mid-1990s as an ICH initiative. At the time, the MSSO, who we work for, were put in place to maintain and distribute MedDRA, and they're on a contract that's overseen by a management committee that oversees the activities of the MSSO, and that's composed of representatives from the industry and the regulatory authorities across all of ICH. The copyright notice explains that, like MedDRA, the material that we'll use today is owned by ICH. So if you do quote anything or use anything, you're welcome to, but you must acknowledge ICH as the source and the owner. If you change anything, we cannot assume that ICH has endorsed the changes. And the third bullet is about third-party slides that we've been given, which doesn't apply today. These are the topics I'm going to cover with you during the next 60 minutes. Firstly, what's new with MedDRA 28, a summary of the changes, including the SMQs, a note about proactive maintenance, what's been done and what may, that if you how you go about it, if you have topics you'd like us to look at in future, MedDRA translation update, then an update on the points to consider documents, an update on mapping, staffing update, and MedDRA data sharing. Also, a new tools-based topic, the web-based browser. As you know, we've had a release of a new web-based browser last December. And another very exciting one for us is the training update of a learning management system, LMS. Again, you may already be aware of this, but we can have a discussion if you've got questions. And then finally, we'll finish with notes about our upcoming user group meetings and any other meetings planned for this year ahead. So what's new with MedDRA version 28? As you know, it will be released in English on the 1st of March and on 15th of March for the translated versions. It's a complex release, which means that it potentially includes changes at all 5 levels of the MedDRA hierarchy, not just the PT and LLT. That's what we see when we have a 0.1 release in September. In March, there could be changes at any levels. And during this release, our international medical officers considered 1,620 change requests from our users or our internal staff, and this includes changes to the SMQs, but not including translation updates. Of those, 1,207 were approved, so around 3/4. Not approved were 411, and suspended was 2. So in case you're wondering, is that more, is that less? I did look back before this session to see, and those sort of numbers are typical. So it's nothing unusual. That's a typical number. We do get a typical sort of approval rate of around 3/4. The changes here reflect the differences between 27.1 and 28. So when I say 1,200 approved, that's since the last release in September of last year. This shows you graphically where the changes. So this is the net change again. So the changes since 27.1, and you can see that the most changes happened in the investigation system organ class. But when you think, and that again is typical, it's what we commonly see, investigations is the largest SOC, and it has been for a very long time, maybe even since the beginning. And if you think about how medicine moves on, it's through investigations and maybe technology, procedures. You see even the procedures, second one up on the bottom, is also quite large. So I think that's quite normal to how it reflects changes in medicine and where the new terminology is being used, new procedures, new investigation names. We also see there was a lot of activity in nervous system disorders. I can't explain for you why that was, and congenital, familial, and genetic. And for me, that probably I would think of that as being maybe some of the genetic markers there in the genetic terms, again, technology driven. You see I was quite active and some of the others you see. There were no changes this time at the SOC or the HLGT level, but in this version there have been 2 new HLTs added and an existing HLT was merged. So here we see the two. One is quality system issues added to the SOC of product issues, and the second one was rhabdoviral infections added to infections and infestations. So in case you're wondering why, what triggered this, the first one relates to some changes in the PTC document and focus on manufacturing and quality systems, terms that have been added and guidance added around the use of them. We'll come to that shortly. So that's to support those changes in other parts of MedDRA or other elements. That's why we have the new HLT. And rhabdoviral infections, this one, if we talk about this in relation to the merger, the existing HLT was rabies viral infection, but rabies is one pathogen within the rhabdoviral group. And although it's probably the most common, the most well known, there are others which are sometimes regarded as neglected diseases, other rhabdoviral infections. So that's why now we've broadened the name of the HLT to rhabdoviral infections. These two are nice examples of when we would have new HLTs added. So just to give you some examples there, these are all that were made changes in this release. Then moving to SMQ changes, there were no new SMQs added in version 28. So as of this release, there are still 110 SMQ topics. Some of them are hierarchical. This means that they're a group of term groupings nested together under one larger, broader, more inclusive, we say superordinate SMQ. So when we say there's 100, I sometimes call them level 1 at the top level, but each one of those might have some smaller, almost sub SMQs within it, which are equally called SMQs. And when we take all of them into account, it comes to 230. These are maintained with each release of MedDRA, and things can be added or there can be modifications to the PTs within them, like making something inactive, making a PT inactive within a particular SMQ, or changing the scope of it from broad to narrow, things like that. And there were 289 PT changes like that, including additions and modifications. Now, another one you may have been following, is the development of an SMQ that was planned called neurodevelopmental disorders. And the news for you today is that the expert working group has decided not to develop this topic into an SMQ because of methodologic and data interpretation concerns. But the group is planning to prepare a summary report in place of an SMQ, and this summary report explaining everything will be posted to the MedDRA website when it is available. Because it's being done by the expert working group, I can't give you a definitive date of when that's likely to be, but if it's something of interest to you, keep an eye on our website and you'll see when it's ready. We will post it as soon as we can. If you do have a need for a new SMQ, you can propose it. You may have some internal queries that you've built internally for topics that we don't have an SMQ for. So if it's something that you'd like to propose as a new SMQ, that means that we would take it on. We may work with you to develop it further, and then the maintenance of it would be our responsibility once it becomes an official SMQ, and it would be standardized across all users then across the industry and regulators. So think about this. If you do have a set of in-house queries that you use, there are some questions when you click on the SMQ edition in the web CR tool. The link is there on the screen. There are some questions you have to answer relating to the background to your proposal, and then it will come through to us. You can see MedDRA version 28.0 SMQ introductory guide for detailed information on all the SMQs. There's also information in the browser. If you click on the name of the SMQ, the details will pop up. And if you come along to one of our webinars, we've got an S&Q webinar coming up shortly. If you want to know more, if this is less familiar to you, we'd love to have you at one of our training events. In this time zone, there's one, I think it's about a week's time, but have a look on the website. So this is the version report showing you the details of the changes, the number of changes of each type. And this is part of the version report, which is distributed in that it's part of the downloads folder. When you download the new release of MedDRA, this Excel spreadsheet will be within that folder. It compares version 27.1 to version 28. You can also run the report yourself using our MVAT tool, MedDRA version analysis tool, if you're familiar with the tool. It shows you here that there were 200 new PTs added, and that including the PTs and LLTs together, there were 789. And you can see there the difference. Promotions, this is where an LLT has promoted to become a PT. There may have been a swap between the LLT and PT for some reason, changes in terminology and common usage, for example. And then you can see the others. Currency changes too this time. This is where terms are made non-current, or they were non-current and they're made current again. If you're up versioning your database, that's something you need to look at, because you may have verbatims coded to a term which has been non-current, been made non-current, and then you should think about recoding it to something else which is still current. So there's the list of changes, and look how many. I was surprised looking at this time, how many changes actually did apply to the SMQs. So when we give our list of how many changes were approved, look how many changes there were in the SMQs. Every time a new term is added to MedDRA, my colleagues, our physicians, sit down, look at all the SMQs and decide which SMQs should now incorporate that new PT. So a lot of work goes into it, and we can see there that the changes that happen, a number of these changes are in the SMQs themselves by adding the new additions to SMQs. Proactive maintenance. This is where you as a user can highlight inconsistencies or suggest corrections and improvements to the terminology in general, not a particular term or individual. It may be a group of terms across different SOCs, for example, something more general. So let's have a look at some prior examples. You can review the placement of could we review the placement of abrasion terms or dental restoration terms? And another one was to add the chemical burn grading of first degree like we had for thermal burns. So these are the kind of things that we've been asked, where somebody's working in that area, they're experts in the field, with the case, I'm sure, of the dental restoration, and they notice that maybe we're not consistent in our placement of the terms across the SOCs, or it's not in line with common practice. So this is inconsistencies or suggested improvements. Proposals there are sent to the MedDRA MSSO help at meddra.org. You don't do it through the change request tool. You do it there through MSSO help. We don't have a time limit in coming back to you for proactive changes. Because we want to take our time to really investigate. And to help that investigation, it's really good if you can provide us with a detailed justification of why you are making this request, so we understand, we've got as much information as possible, and if need be, we can come back to you and ask for clarification or discuss it. So 2 proactivity requests were implemented in MedDRA version 28. So one of these, a user asked for a review of term placement under the HLT of sexuality issues. Following our review, the LLT, not sexually active, was moved under the PT sexual abstinence for better placement. Another user requested a review of terms under the HLGT of sleep disorders and disturbances for improved and consistent placement. Following our review, 23 changes were implemented, including addition of a new PT, sleep-related breathing disorder. So there's the batch number. If you want to take a snapshot of this screen or have a look in the slides, if sleep disorders is something that's relevant to your area of work, do have a look at that batch. I had a look ahead of coming, and there's a whole list when you search for it you can search in the WebCR tool, and you can see the details, all the 23 changes that were made. So I didn't bring them along today because it was a bit too detailed for this session, but do have a look. And if you've got questions and you want to, you can come back to us through the help desk after this session if you have questions. Oh, here they are. Look at that. I had a look at them. I think I put them in. I think that's what it is. I put them in just so I forgot I'd done it rather than, so there we go. I'll leave that on the screen just for a moment so you can scroll down the fifth column along as the proposed term, and you can have a look there, some of the changes that were made. So have a look in your own time if that's of interest to your area. So MedDRA translations now. Here we are as an update on the available translations. We currently have MedDRA available in 24 languages. The most recent was Icelandic, which was released in October 2024, since we've last done a What's New webinar. And we have 7 under development currently. You see on the right-hand side with the green heading, these are Bulgarian, Danish, Maltese, Norwegian, Romanian, Slovakian, and Slovenian. I believe Norwegian is the one that's likely to be the next one to be released. But don't hold me to that because things can change. A lot of work goes into it, a lot of review, and things can change. But that's the way I believe it's looking. Many of these newer EU translations support the Electronic Prescribing Information Initiative. You're probably used to me saying that in these sessions, but if you're not so familiar, it's because there is this initiative, and because MedDRA is used in the electronic prescribing and it's all in local languages, MedDRA had to be in the local languages as well. So it was good because it gave us that drive to create the other languages. But what it does mean is that some of the newer languages won't have a translation of all the documentation that goes with MedDRA. They'll just have the terminology itself. So now an update on the points to consider documents. So this is the front cover. You see that it's been updated. The release is now called 4.25, 25 being the year, and it's released on the 1st of March 2025, or around the 1st of March. There were changes in section 3.2. This is in MedDRA term selection points to consider now. 3.2 under the heading of death and other patient outcomes. And here we have a fatal suicide attempt. There was clarification of the wording of outcomes and seriousness criteria. So there are a few changes in the document made. Sometimes you would say outcome, and now it will say outcome or seriousness criteria. That some of the things which are, when we explain that things are captured elsewhere on the form because it's either an outcome or a seriousness criteria. So there were a few just changes in wording there. And then section 3.28.1, again, a minor editorial change. The data retrieval and presentation points to consider document, again, a similar naming convention. This is release 3.25 and not 24. And released in March 25. So this one had a change in the section 2.6 under versioning. We removed the reference to the MedDRA versioning description that was in the MedDRA term selection points to consider. So the data retrieval document mentioned that there was versioning information in the term selection document, and because of changes, that reference has been taken out. I hope that makes sense. I know I'm talking about 2 documents there. I hope that makes sense. Nothing really major to be concerned about, just for your awareness. And now we have the companion document. So as you know, the companion document is an add-on to another one in the suite of points to consider documents. This one gives a lot more detail, in particular around areas of coding that are particularly challenging, or areas that warrant more examples for our users to fully understand how to code in that area. So you find a lot more practical examples in this document. It doesn't follow the same schedule, which is why it was released in September 2024. it's released as and when is needed. And some of the sections take a long time to prepare, to work up and really discuss with the relevant experts in that field. So we just release it as we need to. So this you see is version 3. So it doesn't get updated that often, but if it needed to be updated, it could be updated at any point, not necessarily waiting for the March release. The changes that were made to the existing sections are in these 4 sections: the introduction, data quality, medication errors, and product quality issues. And the biggest change is that section 5 was added. This is a whole new section. You may have heard us mention it before. We've been waiting for it for a while for it to be ready. So manufacturing and quality system issues. So now this links up to what I was saying about the new HLT that was added, and you see why now we have a new HLT to support it. This section provides guidance on the coding of specific product manufacturing deviations and non-conformances, examples on how specific scenarios around manufacturing and quality system issues can be coded. So the idea of having these terms in MedDRA and how they're coded is that if you needed, you could do a tracking of a problem that arose, an issue that arose at the manufacturing or quality point, which goes downstream. The product might reach the patient and cause problems in the patient. So it's by having that harmonization that MedDRA is intended for, that the same terminology can be used for coding the original originating issue and the consequent problems that may reach the patient and clinical consequences. This is where you can find the companion document on the website, along with the other points to consider documents. So if you're not so familiar, if you're newer to MedDRA, this is where you go to the tools, how to use, and the section is support documentation. At the top, there's a blue banner. The reason that these are all under the blue banner is because they only come out once a year. Beneath this, you'll see lots of green banners, which are headings for the individual releases of MedDRA, for the introductory guides to the individual releases. But because the points to consider and best practices document only come out either annually or as and when needed, whichever, depending on which one you'll talk about, they're under the blue, more general heading. So click on that, it will drop down and you can download, see what you want. And as you see here, there are red line versions showing the differences between the points to consider, MedDRA term selection, and the data retrieval and presentation document. So mapping now. The latest release of our mapping, so this was the SNOMED MedDRA mapping. The latest release was published on the 30th of April 2024. April is the time when we do release every year. This is based on MedDRA 26.1, which was released in September of 2023. And January 2024 release of SNOMED CT. So because of the difference in the timing of the release between MedDRA and SNOMED, that's why we release it in April, so that we can incorporate as much as possible from the January. We can really use the January SNOMED CT as we need to for any changes. Changes coming from SNOMED CT and MedDRA maintenance updates. So it's not necessarily all the terms from the terminologies. It just depends. So it's updated annually. As I said, the next release will be this April, and it's a bidirectional mapping from both SNOMED CT, a subset of those terms, into MedDRA, and MedDRA terms into SNOMED CT, bidirectional. If you have questions around that and they are more technical, I'm happy to take them away and pass them to my colleagues who work in this area. Now we've got the ICD mapping, ICD-10 to MedDRA mapping. This is a unidirectional, just ICD-10 to MedDRA. This one was, the latest release was published on the 28th of January this year, based on the WHO 2019 International Core version of ICD-10 and MedDRA 27.1 from September of last year. This is updated twice annually because the ICD-10 is stable. It is what it was when it was released in version 19 in 2019. So we just look for changes to MedDRA which affect the existing mapping, any new terms that may be added, any better mappings. It's a full review. The mapping contains around 11,000 terms, and there are some examples there on the screen for you if you want to see. So I'll just explain the attributes column if this is new to you. So if you look across to the blue, the MedDRA mapping, in the MedDRA mapping, so it's available in a spreadsheet that you can download. It shows the LLT, both the term and the code that have been assigned to the ICD-10 term. And we've given it an attribute of either equivalent or loss of information or unmapped. And there aren't many unmapped, though. That's because the whole chapter there is unmapped. But the chapter of external causes of morbidity and mortality, generally as many as possible of the individual terms have been mapped. When it's a very close map, like you see the top one is cholera, mapped to cholera, an identical exact match, that would be equivalent because there's nothing additional within the ICD-10 term that hasn't been captured by the MedDRA LLT. Whereas the next one, chronic intestinal amoebiasis, has been mapped to intestinal amoebiasis. And that, because we lose the chronic there's a loss of information. In the MedDRA PT for that one is amoebic dysentery. So you see how it works. If there's some information missing, it's called loss of information in the attributes column. It's up to you how you use them, if that's relevant. Again, some of you probably have specific uses for this mapping. So the downloads page there is where you can download both the SNOMED CT to MedDRA mapping and ICD-10 to MedDRA mapping. The dates there, you see, you can download them from our downloads page. You need your MedDRA ID and password to log on, and then you can download them. We are continuing with joint activities between WHO and ICH to support the development of ICD-11 to MedDRA mappings. That's an ongoing project, currently developing it with different system chapters. So that's just to let you know it was still going on. In case you remember, we mentioned it before. Now the IMDRF, however you may choose to pronounce that one, to MedDRA mapping. This is the International Medical Device Regulators Forum terminology, IMDRF. It's developed a harmonized terminologies for reporting adverse events related to medical devices. And Annex E is the health effects, clinical signs, symptoms and conditions, terms and codes. These have been mapped to MedDRA in a collaborative effort between IMDRF and ICH. Annex E has been mapped with the corresponding MedDRA terms and codes available on the IMDRF website, and the next update is expected in March 2025. So this one, there's information on our website about it, and you can have a look on the IMDRF website. This shows you now in a table all the terminologies which have been mapped to MedDRA or bidirectional, and it gives you a description. This is a nice summary here. The information is available on our website, but this is a nice easy reference for you with some links available. So again, have a look at the slides that Leander's put in the handouts if you're interested to see this table in more detail. We see we've got SNOMED, ICD, HUART, the bridge, which is used by companies or regulators around the world who are converting legacy data from HUART into MedDRA. CTCAE criteria now, which is well-established mapping with MedDRA. Pediatric adverse events terminology from the NICHD. In the devices, IMDRF. Neonatal and maternal and fetal adverse event terminology, newer ones there. Okay. So now MSSO staff update. So Nicolas Thierry joined the MSSO to provide French translation support, a new colleague of mine. He provides French translation support, training and general local support for French-speaking users around the world. Nicolas is a pharmacovigilance expert with over 20 years of experience. He founded a company called Telossi, a medical data coding company, and he's based in Belgium. And he's with us today. So if you've got any questions, I'm sure Nicolas will be happy to help you either today or at some point in the future. So welcome, Nicolas. Lovely to have you with us to join our staff.
Thank you, Jen. It was a true pleasure.
Thank you. So here we have all the trainers you see around the world, my colleagues, local support staff, some of them in various countries and regions, and trainers who may do other tasks as well, like our international medical officers or mapping experts or other roles as well. And you see Nicolas there with his arrow down to Belgium. Some of you may have attended our training events, I'm sure, either face-to-face or webinars, so will have interacted, or user groups. You may have interacted with some of our colleagues already. So MedDRA data sharing now. This is something we want to reiterate because we've been having questions and want to make sure that we do cover that we don't assume everybody is familiar with the rules around MedDRA data sharing. As I say, if you're new to MedDRA or you're not sure. So the MedDRA subscription is an enterprise license. This means that anyone in your organization can use MedDRA and the MSSO tools. So you only need one subscription for any number of users around the world if they all work for your organization. However, you cannot, under any circumstances, share your MedDRA subscription, the MedDRA files, your MedDRA license, your MedDRA passwords, license number, or API key details with unlicensed third parties, because this is your own credentials relating to your subscription. You can check the subscription status of any business partners if you're working with a CRO or a sponsor organization using our self-service application. And there is more detail around the different relationships, like you might have a question, well, we're working as a partnership with this scenario, can I share? Generally, the top line is no. And there are some scenarios explained in the data sharing document, if you have a look on our website, and it's available in several languages. So you can have a look there as well if it's something you need to download and forward to a partner organization which is challenging you over not sharing your credentials. If you've got questions there, happy to talk about it more at the end, because it's important that we all understand this. It's your responsibility when you do subscribe not to share, and to check that any partners that you work with also have a subscription. Web-based browser now, so the IT update. So we have an updated web-based browser. This was launched in December 2024, and the main changes are that it's changes to a new user interface. It has a simpler look, a more streamlined interface with a lot more space on the screen. This means that it's optimized for searching. When you search, you no longer have to use just that little center panel for the results of your search and scrolling through it. I know when I do presentations of the browser at training events, I'm trying to look in this little panel in the center in the old design, because in the old design, we had everything all on the home page. Now, we've taken some of the things off the home page, but I do want to emphasize that all existing functions are still available. They just may have moved. It may be that you need to click on a settings section and find your favorite functions that were available before in the legacy browser. So everything will be there, and if you choose, you can customize your home screen and add a little icon to the navigation bar for your favorite functions. So don't think, oh, I have to do 3 clicks now to get to where I used to have 1 click. You can customize and bring that function for a quick link ready access on the navigation bar, so that in future the tool will remember your customization and that icon will remain the next time you go into the browser. The next change is that the MedDRA version analysis tool that we call MVAT, functionality from that tool have also been added in a tools section together with the hierarchy analysis function and the SMQ analysis function that allow you to import data, that your own data into the browser that you can then analyze using the SMQs or by doing hierarchy multi-axial analysis using the functionality. So this is now in a section called Tools. Again, the Tools button is on by default, so it's there on the home page, the navigation bar. Another change is that if you're browsing in the browser and you see you're using one of our translated versions of MedDRA, if you notice that a term is not quite, the translation is not what you think it should be, you can now, with your MedDRA password, which you've used to access the browser, you click within the options menu, there's a quick route for you to submit a change request for a translation change. But let me emphasize though, it only takes change requests for translations. It doesn't allow you to propose additions or changes to the English version of MedDRA itself, only translations. And the other addition, enhancement, is that when you look at the term details of a particular term in the new web-based browser, the window that pops up also includes details of any mappings of that term to SNOMED or ICD-10 or the mappings that we've just talked about. So having told you all that, here's a screenshot of the main home screen. So let me point out a few things. So along the top, this is what we call the navigation bar. Far left-hand corner, you see those three parallel lines. That's what I was calling the options menu. You might hear some of our trainers call it a hamburger menu because it looks a bit like a sandwich. You come along there, you've got your drop down for the version release, the language. If you want to view an additional language at the same time, you can. These two fields are activated from the settings menu, as is the release. The release, but this field here that you see called release, this is where you can toggle between seeing the current release of MedDRA or the current release together with terms that have been approved and are waiting for release in the next version that will come out in up to 6 months' time, whenever that may be. In this case, it will be March if we look today, or then we'll be looking for September. And that's called a supplemental release because you're viewing supplemental terms as well as the terms. So this feature is if you do go into the web-based browser today, this feature is coming soon. It's a planned update that's coming very soon, but we didn't manage to get it out in the release that came out in December. So just in case you're wondering, well, this is on the screen. Yes, it's on the screen, but I know that it's something we are still working on. So just bear with us with that. There were a lot of changes here, and that one didn't quite make the cut for the release. So here we are, make it in time. Then we've got our blue button, you see, to toggle between SOC and SMQ, depending on what you're viewing on the left-hand side. And now we have our icons. This is what I mean by quick access icons. The left one, which is a screwdriver, and do I call it a spanner or a wrench, wherever you are in the world? To me, it's a spanner. That one is the tools icon. That's where you access the data analysis tools that I mentioned before. And then the next one, the gear or cogwheel, is settings, commonly used there. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that icon. That if you click on that, it opens the settings, and that's where you have all the options for the functions you're used to. The seeing the direct to the points to consider document, the user guide for the tool, advanced searching options, the synonyms list. All of that used to be along the top of the old browser, it's all there, but we've just moved it. We've put it under settings so that you've got more, and you can see immediately there's more white space. The hierarchy is more nicely spaced out visually and nice for those of you who do presentations using it. So I really like the new browser. You can tell because I'm enthusiastic, but I think it does have a lot of advantages. It just takes some getting used to. So go go into it, go into the settings, have a look, and you can add. So if you add features, you'll see the functions. You'll have little icons appear on the navigation bar along the top. The funnel there is a filter. When you click on that one, you see we've typed for cluster headache. The results come just as they did before, alphabetical order, grouped by the categories of lexical variance, exact match. If you don't like the categories, you can turn them off. And the funnel there is what we used to see. We had a whole list of socks. If you wanted to filter by the socks, you can activate that. And if you want to filter by which level of the hierarchy you want to search, you can do that as well. So there we go. Okay, that's giving you quite an overview there of a still. Oh, look, there's some activation as well. Settings and the tools, including MVAT. I've explained all that for you. And there we see we've clicked on a term, and on the right hand side, by clicking on the term, you see the details and occurrences. Is if you do a right hand click drop down from anywhere in the browser, any term, this is what you see. And you see what I mentioned about the mappings. This term is included in the SNOMED mapping, and that's why we see there it tells us the details in SNOMED. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with this anyway in the old browser, but as I mentioned, everything is much the same, it just looks slightly different. There's the mapping. Okay, so the new web-based browser URL is there on the screen. It's the same login credentials. You can access it from our website. Go to how to use tools, browsers, and it's there on the right-hand kiosk. It's going to run in parallel with the legacy web-based browser and MVAT applications. So you're not forced to switch at the moment, but in time, I would suggest that you do use it, even if it's just some of the time to get used to it, because we'll be keeping the two in parallel for the rest of this year. I don't have an exact date of when we're going to stop and remove the old one, but there will be a point at which we will transition over and only provide the new application. So I would encourage you there to start using it to get a feel for it. If not now, at some point during this year. Now training update. I think I'll pause. Let's pause for breath. Leander, do we have any questions? No, I'm not hearing you. Any questions? No, I'll carry on then. Learning management system. Training is our last section, so let's move on. The MedDRA Learning Management System, or LMS, is an e-learning platform that hosts our training videos. So these are our videos, our e-learning, self-directed learning, whatever you wish to call it. We've been building them up over a long period of time, and you may have seen them. They were on training page under instructional videos. A section of those videos were how to use MedDRA, how to do a particular task, and then underneath there were some videos labeled MedDRA Fundamentals. Those have been put in an e-learning platform. The benefit of this is that, as we'll see shortly, you can now earn a certificate from watching these videos, answering the quiz questions that are incorporated within them. So since the launch of this MedDRA LMS on the 7th of January this year, users can now earn training completion certificates on the e-learning platform, as well as at our traditional in-person training classes and webinars. The MedDRA LMS is designed for new users and experienced users. I'm just going to check why yeah, that's fine. Sorry, bear with me. I just had a pause there. The training videos are interactive with self-assessment quizzes, as I mentioned. Hopefully you'll find those enjoyable to do. To help your learning. How you access it here from the URL matrixlms.com, meddra.matrixlms.com. The link is in the MSSO welcome letter that's sent to new subscribers and renewing subscribers. So you see there the link in the letter, the email that you receive. It's also, Leander's kindly put the link in the chat. I know. Thank you, Leander. You've also put some other details in the chat for us. The webinar on SMQs, I notice you've put in the chat as well, if anyone's interested in that. So here you've got the link in the chat. You can access it from the home page, top left. You see the screenshot there to our home page under the news section. You can access it from our training curriculum page. If you look under training on the website, the instructional videos page, that's the one I mentioned that we have. That's where we've been storing our videos as we've created them. And then the e-learning the e-learning training offerings page, comprehensive program of self-directed learning. Under the training page, the link is there as well. So 2 places within the training section and home page and the training curriculum page. So there we are. We've got a bit of animation there showing you where the links actually are on those pages. There we go. So how you create an account, it seemed a bit complex to some of our testers. So what we've done when we first released it, because I think it was new and the first time you do something, it can be a bit challenging. So what we've done is we've created some guidelines that, and there's also a video that you can watch on the YouTube channel if you're interested in doing it yourself or your team following this e-learning system. The program, you can do so. You can find out information of how you set it up. When you set it up, you need to validate your MedDRA account, and it's more time consuming the first time you do it, but when you've done it once, the next time you go in, the system remembers you. So every individual needs to create an account, but then the system will remember them. There is a recorded orientation webinar. So now available to all MedDRA subscribers is part of the subscription. You do need to create an account, and it will remember you. It will retain your learning records. The certificates that you get are only in the LMS, and it's not with your other certificates that you might earn from attending a webinar or face-to-face. So that's something to bear in mind, that they're only within the LMS system. There is no limit of the number of accounts per organization. There are 8 learning modules covering a range of topics. So we've covered many of the topics contained within the MedDRA points to consider, and sometimes these are topics that you ask us for. When you come on our training events and we ask you at the end, was there any other topic you'd like covered? You tell us which ones you'd like covered. Modules are available in the certificate track and the non-certificate track. The difference here, as it sounds by the name, if there's a topic that you just want to see a refresher on a particular challenging area, or where you feel there's been some updates, you can just do that module, and you then are not doing a whole track of basic coder or another track which contains multiple modules. So if you do that, you can do it within the non-certificate track. You can speed up, you can just speed up to get to the point of interest to you. If you do that, you get a well done badge. But if you do the certificate track, it's locked. So you have to look at every slide. You have to do every unit within the module and every module within the track in order to get a certificate. And there's the example there of a basic coding certificate. It's lots of information. The best thing is to actually look at it for yourself. The modules are currently available in English. Other languages are coming soon: Chinese, French, Korean, Spanish, and Russian. As they become available, we will release them, and we're very interested to hear from you. This is another of those initiatives that we're very excited about. I've been involved in creating the material, and I know that a lot of work has gone into it from myself and my colleagues on the team that created it. So we really do want to hear. We would love you to try it, use it, implement it in your organization, and let us know what you think of the tool and the process, the platform itself. I have a few minutes left, and I know there are questions. We have a user group coming up. The European user group is planned for the 8th of April, and it's being held in Warsaw. It looks like it's full, but we're having a waiting list on it. So there is a waiting list. So if you haven't signed up and you'd like to come, do put your name down on the, even if it's on a waiting list, because you never know, there could be cancellations. It will be in English, and the agenda is on the website if you're interested. There is a joint MedDRA and WHO drug user group meeting that will be held for the US. And this will be in San Francisco, California. Online registration is open for that one at the moment. We haven't got the agenda online for that, but we know the date. It will be the 11th of June for the US, and the WHO drug meeting will be the 12th of June. In Europe, there's also, in Warsaw, there's also going to be a WHO drug meeting the next day as well. Now, the Chinese user group meeting is going to be held in Shanghai, China. That will be in Chinese. That will be sometime in May, but we don't yet have a date. More details will be posted as they become available. The registration is not yet open. The Latin American user group meeting is going to be held in September. It's going to be early September. We do have a date, so it'll be early September in Sao Paulo, Brazil. It will be held in Brazilian Portuguese, and again, more details will be posted when the registration's available on the website. It's early for that. And just a note on these, they're all face-to-face, in person only, no virtual option to link. So that's everything I wanted to do. So I believe we have some technical problems that I'm not hearing Leander. I'm not sure if you're all hearing Leander. Let me just have a look at my settings. We've changed, let me just change now. Leander, can you hear, I hear you now? No. So bear with me, everyone. I'm going to look at the questions. The questions we have: is MedDRA 28 available on the new web-based browser? It will be available on the 1st of March when the version 28 is released. So that was the question on that one. I see only SNOMED mapping by default. I only see SNOMED mapping. I'm not sure. Torsten, could you explain a bit more on that one, please? By default, I'm not sure what you mean that one. Is the IMDRF mapping available within the MedDRA online browser? Maybe not. I may have to come back to you on that one. It's not something I've checked. It's not something a question that's come up before. I see now what you mean. You see only SNOMED. I think SNOMED and ICD are in there by default. It's probably a case that the IMDRF is not. In the IMDRF is best to look at in the spreadsheet, the Annex E spreadsheet. So that one may not be added, but I'll clarify that with our mapping experts, Torsten, and come back to you. Will there be more modules in the LMS under the certificate track category? Are we going to add things? I don't think we have a plan for any at the moment. There's none that I'm aware of that are in progress, but I wouldn't say that we wouldn't do it, and it would be great if we can. It's still quite new for us, but we've really enjoyed putting them together. And if we get good feedback and people come up with topics that they think we need, we will look at those comments and see what we can do. Can I ask you about IMDRF to MedDRA mapping? Let me just see the full question on this one. It may be one that, does it essentially mean that IMDRF terms are also available in MedDRA for March? No, what it is that the IMDRF, if you have a look at the spreadsheet, it has a list of terms that the IMDRF group, the regulator forum there, have selected events that they think are commonly used, commonly reported for devices. So that's there. And in a way, it's like a subset of MedDRA, because what we've done is we've included those terms in MedDRA, but we call it a mapping because it's a link between the two. So the terms on Annex E will either be in or mapping. I believe it is the terms themselves, but it's only Annex E at the moment. So that's what we have there. Whether that changes over time, I don't know. We've got quite a few questions. Let me go back to where I was, because I see somebody here has asked a question. Let me just make my questions. I'm sorry about this. Please bear with me. We've got a new platform here, and I'm still getting used to it, despite several. No, let me unmute. It's a generic question. This is about the business partner. If your business partner has a license of a different version of MedDRA, but you're coding with a different version, what should be the line of action? Well, when you have a subscription to MedDRA, it's an active subscription, and it gives you access to all versions of MedDRA, all languages and all versions back to the beginning. Doesn't matter when you subscribed, you have access to the legacy versions as well. So it doesn't matter. So long as your business partner has a subscription, it's fine for you to work together. Could you please show again? What's this one? Could you show again? I think that one may be done by Isabel. We'll come back to it if not. I think that was done. Do all regulatory health authorities have a current MedDRA version? I think so. I can't say for every single authority around the world, but regulatory authorities are eligible to have MedDRA without charge, as are non-profit organizations. So I can't speak for every single authority around the world, but we broadly, I would say yes. Everybody's eligible to it. I just can't speak for every single country in case there are some, but to my knowledge, I would say the vast majority of them would use MedDRA. I just can't tell you exactly which do and which don't offhand at the moment. You can access them, but what's this one? You can access them, but not download or upload in our own LMS. That's exactly right. It's a MedDRA LMS. It's not related to your own learning management system. You can't download the videos and incorporate them into your own system. You can only use them from our LMS. Oh, I see we're just on the hour now. I think that's everything. Not the certificates you're asking, Hannah. Yes, the certificates. You can download the certificates from the LMS system. They come as a PDF, so you can download them as a PDF. So if you want to, if you can incorporate them into your LMS, then if you can do that, then yes, by all means. But you can only access them from our own platform. I cannot enter the web-based browser with my company credentials. This might be one here, Sheila, that although you can to the old web-based browser. I'll follow up with you offline. I've got your email, Sheila, so I'll follow up with you on that one offline. What else have we got here? I think that's everything that I can see. I think that's everything. It was just Isabel's question here, which has been answered. I see about something wanting to see something again. So if there's anything you wanted and I haven't covered it, let me know. Oh, that was a full hour, wasn't it? Well, thank you all very much for your attention. Have I answered everybody's question? I thought, is there one from Martin? Let me have a look. Oh, I do not have the authority. Looking forward to hearing from you. Could you clarify? Let's have another look here. How the web-based browser. These are web-based browser questions. Bear with me, everyone. How is the new web-based browser accessed? When I log in, I can see. Okay, Silva. I'll show you that shortly before we log off. See the early ones. No, I should not be at that one. We've done that one. IMDRF, ask about IMDRF. We've done all of those. Speak to relevant. Okay, that one's going to be handled offline. Oh, I am sorry. I feel I'm wasting your time looking through my questions here. I think there was some at the beginning. This is quite comments about the audio. I think that's it then. The version report distributed only lists only the changes by primary SOC. If you need the secondary links changes listed as well, you need to use MVAT. So thank you, Martin. You're clarifying here that I mentioned the version report is available we distribute it as part of the downloads folder, the downloads of the new release. And one of our users, Martin's, just clarified for us that one only lists the changes by primary SOC. If you're interested in seeing the links, the secondary SOC changes between version 27.1 and 28, you need to use the MVAT tool to generate the report yourself. So that's a point just to bear in mind. Sorry, I didn't mention that before, but thanks for clarifying, Martin, on that one. Will there be any in-person training planned? I think Leander's handled that one. Have a look at our schedule. We do have some in-person training planned around Europe, around the world in general. So wherever you are in the world, keep an eye on our website and you'll see the details there. Thank you for the feedback. Those of you that are putting feedback in the comments, very nice to see that. And I do apologise about the technical problems. I think that's everything now. Whew. Now let's go to my web and I will show you. You asked about the browser. So how do you access the browser? So at the top right of the screen, we have the WBB. That's the quick link, but that just takes you to the existing browser. To see the new web-based browser, you have to go how to use tools. And then you've got the link on the right hand side here. Open the new web-based browser. This area we call the kiosk, or you can go to the page specifically for browsers. That's showing you the diagram of the older version. And on the left hand side there you have a link. Open the new web-based browser. And that's where it is there. Log in. So immediately you're struck by how much white space there is. And I've customized it because I'm doing some training on this, and look along the top, I've got every function there. So the way this is set up now has every function on the top level that is on the current release. So if you think, oh, I have to click down, I have to go to settings, I've got everything on this main home page equivalent to what the legacy version. So you do see the difference immediately, the space. We've got the filtering list here. And if I want to change it, I can click on settings. I can restore with one button. I've got it back to how it was. So if you were to go into it for the first time, this is what it looks like. More white space. And again, go to the cogwheel settings. There are the settings there. You can choose what are you looking to, which functions are you looking to add. And at the top left, remember the hamburger, which I call options. There we go. This is where you find the legend, the change request for translations, and again, you can access the settings from there as well. So you're only ever one click away from activating the functions that you're used to seeing along the top, and you can customize it by adding them. So that's the web-based browser. This is the LMS system. Again, I've opened it just to show you. When you click login, it remembers you. You can ask it to remember you. Once you've created your account, and you can see here it will tell you how to create the account. You can access how to do it. This shows you the modules that I've enrolled in, or the path, the track, introduction to MedDRA and advanced coding that I'm in the process of studying. And there are things along the left. This is what it looks like in the standard MedDRA colours. Okay, I think that's enough. Otherwise, I'll have you here all day talking MedDRA. So let me just double check there's no more. Are there any other questions? Thank you. I think that's everything now. So thank you very much for your attention today. I'm sorry I've had some technical problems and I've not been able to hear the questions from Leander. I don't know what it was. I could hear her before the session, but thank you for bearing with us. Thank you, Leander, for your collaboration. Welcome again to Nicola, who's with us, and I hope to see you all at one of our training events again later this year, or at a user group, maybe in Warsaw. So take care, everyone. Stay safe and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.